The normal pattern of quiet breathing is called eupnea, for true, good, easy, normal, and breath. Eupnea can consist of shallow, deep, or combined shallow and deep breathing. A pattern of shallow or chest breathing is called costal breathing, and it consists of upward and outward movements of the chest due to contraction of the external intercostal muscles. A pattern of deep abdominal breathing is called diaphragmatic breathing, and it consists of outward movement of the abdomen due to contraction and descent of the diaphragm. Breathing also provides us with ways of expressing emotion when we laugh or we sigh or we sob. It can also be used to expel foreign matter from the lower air passages through actions like sneezing and coughing. Breathing movements also are modified when we control the way that we talk or to sing. So on the next couple of slides, we'll look at some different breathing patterns, and I want you to know the basics on these and just understand that these are non-respiratory air movements. So what happens when you cough? You have a long, deep inhalation, and the glottis closes, and this results in a strong exhalation that sends a blast of air out through the upper respiratory passages. So this is a reflexive action that can be stimulated when you have something lodged in the larynx, the trachea, or the epiglottis. Sneezing, well, I'm just bound and determined to call that sneezing. Sneezing is when you have spasmic contractions of the muscles of inhalation, and that really forcefully causes air to be expelled through the nose and the mouth. Very often we have a bit of saliva that is expelled with the sneeze as well. So this is usually something that caused by something that irritates the nasal mucosa. Sighing, just a long, deep inhale followed by a short, forceful exhale, such as, I sure wish it would rain, or I'd rather be at the beach. Yeah, wouldn't we all? Yawning is one that absolutely fascinates me. So you have a really deep inhale with your mouth wide open, and you have this exaggerated pushing down of the mandible. Now, what causes you to yawn? Well, we know that it can be stimulated when you're sleepy or you're tired, but you can even see somebody else yawn and it makes you yawn. What's that all about? People say yawning is contagious. How? I want somebody to explain this to me. I've read a few theories, not quite sure that I can get on board with any of them. I keep thinking one day I'll have that student that will come back and say, I have found the scientific, logical, good, thorough explanation for why yawning is contagious. Yeah, I know, some of you are yawning now just because we were talking about it. Sobbing and crying, you have convulsive exhalations. The glottis, of course, is going to remain open during part of this, close at other parts. But what's really different about sobbing and crying tend to be you have these really troublesome facial expressions, and the expressions show that sadness. Very often, or almost always, crying will be accompanied by tears as well. But think about laughing. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Are you laughing or are you crying? So you have the same basic movements as crying, but the facial expressions tend to differ quite a bit. Hiccuping, another one of those that is caused by spasmic contractions of the diaphragm, followed by spasmic closing of the glottis as well. So it produces a sharp sound when you inhale. The stimulus is usually an irritation of the sensory nerve endings of the gastrointestinal tract that causes that spasming of the diaphragm. So what's your best remedy for hiccups? I've asked this question a lot, and I've heard a lot of interesting things. Some people hold their breath. That builds up CO2, right? So perhaps it has something to do with changing the pH, if that works for you. I've heard other people say they drink water while holding their breath, or drink water through a straw, or try to drink water off the wrong side of a glass. Ooh, that means you've got the open end down under your chin, right? You're probably going to get wet with that one. I've heard a spoon of sugar and let it dissolve on your tongue, or a spoonful of peanut butter. But a really strange one, and one that works for me most of the time, is to take a cold spoon and to stimulate your uvula, the little hangy down thing in the posterior part of your mouth, in the upper part of the mouth at the palate. And once you do so, that can trigger a gag reflex. And think about what you're doing when you gag. You're pushing upward, and that can, of course, be disrupting that spasmic contraction of the diaphragm. Try it one day. I bet you will. The Valsalva maneuver is when you have a exhalation, and it puts a great deal of pressure pushing downward on the abdominal cavity. So this is the pushing during defecation, or when you are trying to have, or when you're pushing during labor and trying to push that baby out. Also, the Valsalva maneuver is used if you're trying to pick up something and it's requiring a lot of push and force. You'll find that you may be holding your breath and pushing downward. And also, a modified breathing movement is pressurizing the middle ear. So when your mouth and your nose are closed and you force air from your lungs and it goes into your auditory tubes into the middle ear, and it pressurizes the middle ear. So think of it as you're trying to pop your eardrum, as we call it. So this is used by people that snorkel or scuba dive when they're going down deep into the water to equalize the pressure within the ear with that of the external environment. I know, some pretty cool stuff, right?